Hello, this is Hamza again, and welcome to The Long Dark, a survival game that is currently in early access. But before you click away, I would like to tell you that this survival game doesn't have any zombies or any of those other cliches that seem to plague the survival game genre in Steam. Indeed, there are no zombies, and instead of fighting anything like that, you're actually battling the forces of nature itself. The premise is sort of like this. You have crash landed in Canada after a geomagnetic storm or disaster of some sort has knocked out all electricity in the area and probably also the rest of the world. And now your job is to find shelter. You need to find firewood in order to keep yourself warm. You need food and water. You're constantly in the risk of freezing to death, getting sick. You might die of starvation, or if you don't find enough water, you might die of dehydration. And there are also natural dangers, such as wolves and indeed bears. Naturally, you also need to battle the changing weather conditions. Some days are going to be slightly colder, some days are going to be warmer, and sometimes you might even end up getting stuck in the middle of a snowstorm. And you might indeed have trouble even finding your way because the snow is blocking your vision quite effectively, so you might not see more than a couple of meters ahead of yourself. In order to survive, you naturally need to find various kinds of tools and goods. You can also craft tools for hunting and fishing in order to get some food, but these resources are quite limited. You will find some canned goods around the places. There are various kinds of buildings around here, even though you are sort of in the middle of Canadian nowhere. There are still buildings that contain some canned goods, but these goods are very much limited. And over time food also goes bad, tools break down, clothing does pretty much the same thing. So if you want to survive for longer than a couple of days or maybe weeks, you will have to be very careful with your use of resources, and you must harness the local food sources and other local materials in order to survive. For now, the game is basically, it has no story mode. The story mode is completely grayed out, and currently you can only play the game in sort of a sandbox mode where you can run around the place. The various areas are completely open for your exploration. And basically the only objective you currently have is to survive as long as you can. But the game is supposed to eventually have a story mode of some sort. For now there is very little information what sort of a story it's going to be, but basically we can completely ignore it for now because it doesn't exist yet. But the sandbox mode is actually quite good. There are lots and lots of Canadian wilderness for you to explore. There are various kinds of interesting locations that you can check out. The equipment and basically loot that you can find in these various kinds of buildings and areas is randomized. There is some randomness involved, so it's going to increase the replayability of this game. The game also features permadeath, so if you die, it's game over, you need to restart. Graphically, The Long Dark is quite pleasing actually. It looks quite good, and surprisingly it performs quite well too. The game is made with Unity, but it works just fine on my AMD rig with the open source drivers, and that's actually quite surprising because usually Unity games have trouble running on Nvidia stuff, not to mention AMD. On the Steam store, the system requirements mention that even Intel HD Graphics 4000 series could probably run this game. I'm not sure how well, but I imagine, considering that it runs fairly well on my rig, that it would probably run if you turn down the settings somewhat. The game is also very atmospheric, both graphically and environmentally, and the soundtrack is also quite good. It only kicks in occasionally, but it sounds very good when it does, and basically all of this conveys this feeling of loneliness, and you definitely are alone in this Canadian wasteland. There is no one around, and the only signs of human activity are basically these abandoned houses and occasional frozen corpses that you can find around the place. But apart from that, you're basically the only human around here. Overall, I have quite liked The Long Dark. Normally I don't like survival games too much. I have simply gotten sick of Minecrafts and Starbounds, etc. But The Long Dark is different enough that I actually have fun in this game more than usual, and I don't really get as frustrated and as bored as I do when I play something like Minecraft. So it's definitely something a little bit different, and I'm actually really glad that they tried to do something different and not go for that you know, overcrowded zombie survival type of a scenario. I have played The Long Dark for maybe about 6 or 7 hours now, and I have quite enjoyed that time. And I imagine that I will probably end up pumping more hours into it over time. For now, I think I can actually recommend this game. It's a nice early access game. All the gameplay mechanics are pretty much there. I haven't noticed anything really missing apart from the story. So yeah, I think this is probably something worth checking out if you want a slightly different survival experience that is more focused on surviving the natural elements instead of surviving a zombie apocalypse or something along those lines. So do check it out. I have found this game to be quite cool, no pun intended. Anyway, that has been The Long Dark, and we will see in future videos.